Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Mysterious Galaxy virtual event. I am Nick, the digital marketer and director of events for Mysterious Galaxy. Tonight, we are joined by an awesome mystery thriller team, Lars Kepler, or as their actual married names, Alexandra and Alexander. We are also joined by Abby Endler, who is going to be doing the discussion portion of this. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Hi, so nice to see everyone.
Hello. Hi from Stockholm.
Yes, they are live in Stockholm right now. So thank you so much for being here. I know it's late at night there.
Oh, it's just fine.
It's a pleasure.
Now tonight, or today, depending on where you're at, actually, we are discussing their latest novel in the Killer Instinct series, The Mirror Man. I hope you all have your books ready. There we go. Excellent. Perfect. We're all matching. This is the 8th installment in their Killer Instinct series. Strung up with a winch on a rainy night, the body of Jenny Lind is found hanging in a playground, the girl having been missing for 5 years. When Detective Junalina recognizes an eerie connection between Jenny's murder and a death declared as suicide, it becomes clear that this is the work of a serial killer. But as another teenage girl goes missing, Detective Lina must work quickly before the girl becomes another victim to the killer's murderous rampage. Chilling. If you haven't already, everyone that's going to be watching, you can go ahead and hit the link below. It'll take you to our website page where you can buy The Mirror Man or any one of other Lars Kepler's books. And if you want to ask any questions towards the end for the question and answer portion, you can go ahead and hit the Ask a Question link below and submit your question. All right, I'm going to disappear now, and I'm going to let Abby take it away. I'll see you all at the end.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Alexandra and Alexander. It's so nice to see you again.
So nice to see you, Abby.
How are you doing? Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I'm so excited to get to speak with you about your amazing new book, which you know I loved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Nick has just given us an amazing summary of what this book is all about. So I think that you have prepared a little reading for us to give us a little taste of this story. So if you don't mind sharing a little reading with us, we would absolutely love that.
Absolutely. I'm just going to do this.
Alexandra is reading. I cannot hold up the book or something.
Perfect. You're like the little model there. I love it.
So this is from chapter 2. Something has happened. Okay. Jenny Lind wakes up with a sudden urge to throw up. The floor is rocking. Her shoulders are aching, her wrists burning. She realizes she must be inside the truck. Her mouth is taped shut. She's lying on her side with her hands bound above her head. She can't see much. It's as if her eyes are still asleep. Lines of sunlight break through the tarpaulin. She blinks and her vision blurs. She feels unbelievably sick. Her head is pounding. The huge tires roar against the asphalt beneath her. Her hands have been bound to one of the poles, holding up the trailer's covering. Jenny tries to work out what happened. She remembers being knocked to the ground, someone holding a cold rag over her mouth and nose. A wave of anxiety washes over her. She looks down and sees that her dress is bunched up around her waist, but she is still wearing her black tights. The truck is speeding along a straight stretch of road, the engine steady. Jenny desperately searches for some kind of logical explanation, a source of misunderstanding. But deep down, she knows exactly what is happening. She is in the very situation everyone fears most. This is the kind of thing that only ever happens in horror films. She left her bike at school and she was walking home, pretending not to notice Eleanor following her, when the truck pulled up across the footpath behind her. When the driver hit her, it was so unexpected that she didn't have time to react, and before she could get back on her feet, he shoved a wet rag in her face. So,
Thank you so much for that reading. I mean, one of my favorite things about your storytelling is just how visceral it is. I feel like you pull readers immediately into these dark worlds. And I think if there are readers watching who have never read any of your books, they're going to know immediately from that reading, these are dark stories. And I would love to kind of start with just a discussion of, what draws you to that dark subject matter, why it's important to you to tackle these dark topics. I know that, your parents, you have daughters. This is a story about a killer who is targeting teenage girls. I mean, what draws you to this dark subject matter?
Well, it might seem strange, this darkness, when you actually live a very happy life with your wife and your daughters. But I think for us, fiction is a way to handle our own fears, to begin a journey from chaos to order, from questions to answers, and moving towards justice.
yes, and absolutely. Sometimes when we wrote The Mirror Man, it just became so intense that we had to, leave our computers and just
take a break.
Walk away,
Yeah.
breathe for a while. And of course, we asked ourselves, why are we doing this? This is scary for us. And I don't think we write these stories because we like violence. It's the opposite. We hate it, and we try to understand it and try to make the word right. Because as you said, Alexander, you can move towards justice in fiction. Because real life, it's much more
It's messy, and often justice does not come. Absolutely. And I mean, are there topics when you begin writing a book that are off the table for you, that are too dark for you, or do you feel like you have to go where the story will take you?
I think we always, if we start the story, we will follow it. But I think maybe we avoid some kind of stories because we wouldn't. It's too hard, too heavy to do some kind of research, and we're very.
Research means so much to us.
We do it all the time, but some kind of research. All research, of course, about killings is about real killers and real victims and real suffering, and that's heavy. But when it's about children, it's a little bit too tough for us, anyway. Because
Absolutely.
we do write entertaining books for us and for our readers.
We want it all to end well.
Absolutely. You need to have that resolution at the end of the story to give the satisfaction of the journey that you're taking readers on. Absolutely. Now, one of my favorite things about your books, and I've read all of your books now, and one of my favorite qualities of them, which is so true in The Mirror Man, is just the incredible villains you create. I feel like if there are people watching who love even TV shows like Mind Hunters or, Criminal Minds, these stories that dig into the psychology of these villains, they're going to love your books. And this book, I think, has one of your most psychologically complex killers in it. And obviously, we're not going to spoil anything, but I was curious to know, first and foremost, I mean, how do you get these ideas for these villains? Or do they just pop into your head? Do you know where these ideas come from?
Oh,
not really.
Great question. Well,
it's strange because we know what we are writing about when we start, but as you say, they pop into our heads, and they're like just approaching you, and you try to understand them as a writer. And maybe that's a major part. It's the empathy. Us trying to understand the villains, because they're not monsters. They're not born monsters.
Right.
We can understand them. Of course, we don't agree with
what they do.
the way to handle their own fears or suffering or problematic childhood or whatever. But we want to understand them as full human beings, as they are, of course.
Yeah, and asking the question, what is interesting for us as writers is to ask the question, what happened to you? Why did you become this person?
What went wrong?
Yeah, what went wrong?
Yeah.
Also, when did you make this decision? Because it's always a decision. You can have most people with horrible childhoods are not
Right.
No,
serial
not
killers.
serial killers, no.
No, yeah.
Most of us, we just handle our sorrows and our failures, but everybody can't. And it's always some kind of decision when you cross that, would say,
Yeah.
border or line.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you know it's wrong, of course.
And with the Mirror Man, I think also the plot just came to us, and we are so grateful for this, because so far, when we finish a book, we always feel that we have given everything. There's nothing left. We can never write a book again. And it was the same thing. We had finished the book before the Mirror Man, and we started to, clean the house and do the laundry and everything. And suddenly we knew that we would have this, as you said, psychological complex.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where we wanted to have a really fast-paced thriller, but still it was going to be a dark labyrinth. And we needed a hypnotist.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that was kind of what really turned us on
I
in
think
writing the story.
that was the key, I think, where we understood that, well, we can bring back our beloved hypnotist again.
Yeah. And you need his skills in this story, and I can't say why, but readers will understand. So you've mentioned research, and again, no spoilers, but given the psychological complexity of the villain character in this book, were you doing research into psychology, speaking with psychologists as well when you were writing this story?
Oh,
A
yes.
lot.
Yes.
We always do a lot of research. As I say, we talk to detectives and policemen and so forth. But this time we had to talk to a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists. Because,
Not spoiling anything.
No. But it's an interesting, complex story.
It is. It's so complicated. And one day I would love to have a spoiler-filled discussion with you about what you learned, because this is a really fascinating character who you've created. And I was curious to know, is there one particular villain you've written who sticks in your mind, who still creeps you out to this day?
Well, of course, Jurek Walter, the antagonist of Jonah Linnup.
For the whole series.
I still have nightmares of him sometimes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well,
That's a good answer. He's terrifying.
yes.
It's a special one.
But as you say, Abby, the villain has to, there's always a balance between the hero and the villain and the crime.
Yeah.
So it's kind of three heavy
Pieces.
that you need to balance, because nobody should. Yeah, we have to build a villain and build a crime and build a hero that matches each other. That that
It's a system of planets. It's a balance.
and they have to give each other a real fight.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you do such a fantastic job of, pitting these villains against Juna, your protagonist. And that's a perfect segue, because I would love to speak about his character a little bit. He's a fantastic character who people are going to become so attached to when they start reading your books. And I'm curious, how would you describe Juna to someone who has never heard of him before?
Well, he's very stubborn. He never gives up, and he's very empathic.
Yeah.
He can't stop a case.
I think that's his biggest strength, is his empathy, because he can, when he investigate a case, he can see beyond the serial killer as a monster. He can actually feel their desperation and their fear and their suffering. So as he can understand them deeply, he can work ahead them.
Yeah. Yes, and I think this empathy or this intuition, even maybe, or understanding, a deeply understanding, is what makes him so brilliant as an investigator. But at the same time,
it's complicated.
After all these books, he carries each case with him.
After each case he solves, he's getting this feeling of losing his moral compass,
Yeah.
so to speak. He had this feeling of maybe making the world not a better place.
A little bit darker. That's his fear.
Yeah, because he never gives up, and he crosses a lot of borders to solve cases.
Yeah.
And maybe not. That's not just a good thing.
Right.
People get hurt during this journey. He knows he helps people, but he also brings in violence in the world.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think for us as writers writing a series, this is the 8th book. It's kind of surprising that Jonah is still such a mystery to us.
That's what I was curious about. Yeah.
But we still don't really understand everything about him, and to us, I think that's one of the joys of writing this series is we are so curious because he has become such a complicated person.
Yeah, he's like our closest friend because we meet him every day.
Yes,
He's like almost a family member, but he still keeps a distance to us. He tells us what he wants, and we as followers try to, understand him and.
but we don't.
No,
Not
we
totally.
don't.
Well, I love that. I'm sure that's part of what makes it so continuously engaging for the reader as well, is that you're still curious to know about him. And therefore, we're also curious to know more about him, And I also have to say, something that I really love is not only the relationship you set up between Juna and the villains, but also we have Juna and Saga, who is another, central character, even though Juna is kind of the main figure, but Saga is a super important part of this series and universe as well. And I wondered if you could kind of just tell us a little bit about, who Saga is and kind of, why you love her as well, because she's such a significant part of these stories.
Yeah, Saga is, she's fantastic. I love to write about her too, because, she's a really, she has this hot temper and she's not diplomatic at all. No limits, no. And she's a great, boxer and a shooter, and but still, she has this complicated childhood that she's kind of running away from, because her mother was, she was mentally ill, and Saga knows that she carries with her this inheritance, and she just tries to push it away.
She blocks it.
Pretends like nothing. And when Jonah carries each case with him and wondering if he makes any difference in this world, Saga,
like the steam pressure gets higher and higher all the time. Yeah. She's just keeping it under the surface. And we always feel very cruel to our heroes because we love Jonah and Saga, and still we push them so hard.
Yeah. You do put them through a lot, absolutely.
Sorry.
I'm curious to know, do you ever see any of yourself in these characters, or do they feel like they're just truly completely separate people from you two?
Wow. Jonah is a portrait of me, of course.
Of course.
No, I wish.
No, but they are fruits of our imaginations. Yeah. So I think
what we need, actually, maybe they are what we need.
They are much braver than we are,
and what we need to dare to write these stories, because we tell you about how complex they are, but we trust them. Actually, both of them trust them.
Yeah. Absolutely. So the dark labyrinth that is beneath the Mirror Man. We really needed Jonah and Saga to be able to dare to go into that darkness. Yeah. So I think they are like beacons, or what you say.
They are, absolutely. That's a perfect word for them. Absolutely. And something that really kind of blows my mind as a reader, I'm not someone who's ever tried writing a novel, and I hear you talk about your characters and the way that they kind of control their own journeys in a certain way. Like they tell you what they should do or what they would do in that situation. Can you just talk a little bit about that experience? Because it kind of blows my mind a little bit. I always used to assume that authors were in complete control of what their characters did. But for you, that's not the case. These characters make their own decisions.
Well, we try to be in control, because when we start to write the story, we have an idea. And then we write down the major story on small pieces of paper, and we put them on a wall, and we write new ones and put more and more for each scene, so we can overview the story.
Yeah, we're building up the plot.
And then we take a step back and dream up the story again and again until every detail is perfect. And then we start to write. But the characters, they don't care about our notes or our plot. They do what they want to. And we try to force them into the story because they have to go in that direction. But very often they don't. And then we have to return to the notes and discuss again. But that's the magic of writing, because it's not like painting by numbers. It's you have to listen to the story itself.
Listen to the characters. So that is kind of a surprise, that when you are so disciplined and structured,
so smart,
and you have this complete plot with all the storylines, all the scene for every different character, and then when you start to write, you realize that the story, it wants to go in another direction in a way.
Yeah.
So you have to have that ear as well to just, I follow.
And do you think that approach has it changed your idea of how long this series will be? Like, did you have a set idea at the beginning and now you just have to kind of listen to those voices and feel your way through it? How has that worked for you?
Well,
when we started, we said we will write 8 books. That's it.
And we just said it because it felt like so
books.
many books.
Yeah.
But now The Mirror Man is our 8th book. And we have already written the 9th book here. Yeah, so, and we are starting to plotting the 10th book. So we have said to ourselves, as long as we enjoy this, which is...
As long as we have this passion, and as long as we are curious about Jonah and Saga, and as long as they are alive, of course.
We give them a hard time. Yeah. I'm sorry.
You definitely do, but I know we all can't wait for more stories with these characters, and we're sorry in advance for what they're going to go through, but it's going to be worth it. So something that, I've always tried to tell people, that this is a series where these books really can be read on their own. And I think that sometimes readers are hesitant to, just pick up a series installment if it's not the first one, but these books work so well as standalone stories. And I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit to, how you go about crafting that balance when you're writing, like thinking about both series fans and possible new readers. Is that something that is kind of front of mind for you while you're writing?
Well, very good question, because we were really determined from the very beginning that each book should be, contained a total, complete universe.
With one case, with a beginning and the end.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and if you want to read more books, you will have, kind of the epic story about our characters and what has happened to them.
And it wasn't that complicated in the beginning, but the more books you write, the more complicated it gets.
Definitely.
Because it's a balance between have an interesting recap for your loyal readers, always telling the past in an interesting new angle, with new details, new scenes,
new perspectives.
Yes.
Yeah,
but at the same time avoid spoilers for the new ones, because they don't know what happened in the past, and they want to maybe read earlier books. So it's complicated, but it's a lot of fun too.
Yeah. You do such a beautiful job with it. I mean, I started reading your books kind of accidentally in the middle of the series, not even really knowing what I was doing, and it worked great for me. So whatever you're doing a perfect job with it. Now, I'm sure that you get this question all the time, but I mean, here we have two writers writing together under one pen name, and the voice that you create, the Lars Kepler voice, is so strong, and it doesn't feel ever like it's two different people. It feels like one voice. And I'm curious, first and foremost, I mean, what does it actually look like when you're writing the book? How do you actually go about writing together?
Yeah, well, it's actually that we write together,
Yeah.
and it's so important that Lars Kepler is one voice, and
we share everything from the first idea to the research to the last line, the plotting.
And I think this sharing is very important, because it would be devastating if I was the only one who knew about, weapons, and Alexandra knew about makeup or something. I don't know. So it's so we have this
because it's the whole process together is built on dialogue. We have to talk,
and we need to know
and
as much as.
if you were the only one knowing about guns, well, there's no dialogue possible, because I have to say no. We go for a Glock 17 instead. And you say, oh, I want this Colt combat.
No, so I think that is so important, that we share the research, we share the knowledge of the story, and then we will write. You have your computer and I have mine. We sit
In this room,
yes, and we sit close to each other,
not
and
this close.
you write one scene, I write another scene, and after a while we just change text with each other. So I continue with Alexander's text, and he continues with mine.
And it's great.
Filling up gaps, changing things.
You have new input all the time, because as soon as you have the least small dip in your inspiration, you just email your text to your partner and you get another one.
And
new ideas.
Exactly. And I think when we finish a book, there's not a single sentence in it that just one of us has written. It's just the work of Lars Kepler.
That's
I love it. And people might be surprised to learn that you both actually were writers yourself prior to becoming the Lars Kepler duo. You each had your own writing backgrounds and careers. How did the idea first come about to join forces, and why did you decide on the pen name Lars Kepler?
Well, Alexander, he was, a wonder boy. You wrote your first novel when you were 18, very young.
Yeah, wow. I was young. I didn't know better.
Alexander had written a lot of books when we met, and I wrote 3 novels, historical novels, and then we felt that it's such a lonely job to be a writer, and we just love to do things together.
We love to share everything, and not sharing this huge part of your life. It felt like a failure in some ways. We thought, well, let's write together. It can't be that hard.
It was actually really, really, really complicated, because we have such different writing voices individually.
We love each other's books, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So
merging our styles wasn't that easy.
No. So when we first made our first attempts, it was a shock that this was an area where we couldn't cooperate at all. It was kind of a disaster. We started with trying to write a children's book, actually, but we were just fighting, and then we just left the children's book idea, and we tried to write a play for the theater.
Because Alexandra has been an actress for many years, and I've written a lot for the theater stage.
Yeah, so but it was even worse. Yeah. Almost worse. No, I'm kidding.
But we actually used one of the ideas from that play to one of our Kepler books.
It's true.
Yeah. Wow, so cool.
Yeah, but that was when we needed to find out a way of being able to write together. And that was actually Lars Kepler. Because with the pen name, we could leave our egos, our individual styles behind, and we just understood immediately that we have something totally new, where we can create something new and new stories.
It might seem like a bit silly that we were able to fool ourselves in that way. Just pretend to be a third author.
But it worked.
Yeah.
It worked.
It works great. And I don't think it seems silly at all. I totally understand what you're saying about egos and just having that third voice to sort of balance everything and just kind of help you both leave your individual styles behind you. I think it's so cool. And, you know, when you first published your debut novel, The Hypnotist, it was kind of a whole there was a lot of mystery surrounding the publication. It became this kind of massive media frenzy. And I wonder if you could just tell that story, because I still to this day cannot believe everything that happened around that publication.
Well,
No, it was crazy.
Yeah, it started with the name Lars Kepler, because when we came up with the name, we had this creativity, and we were afraid of losing that creativity. So we decided to hide behind Lars Kepler.
To become secret.
Totally secret. So we didn't tell, not our children, not our family, not anyone.
And we sent in the manuscript for The Hypnotist anonymously as Lars Kepler at hotmail.com.
We said, like, my name is Lars Kepler, it's a pen name, and I will never ever
reveal myself. And then they read it in the publishing house, and they said,
the manuscript,
and they said, oh, we want to have it, to have it. And
just a few weeks later, actually, they had translated the book and brought it to the London Book Fair, and it became the major title at the fair. And then Swedish media went crazy because they had to know the writer behind Lars Kepler. So it was a summer, and
it was a manhunt.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And one of the tabloid papers, they had this,
24-hour hotline to keep us in the general public, and one famous criminologist set up a profile on Lars Kepler on live television.
Amazing! It's incredible.
Yeah, so we actually went to our small summer house on the West Coast and just tried to think about it.
Because it was so crazy. When we wrote the manuscript and tried to be secret, we never thought that it would be a manhunt.
Yeah.
And it was, in August. I think the book had only been published for a couple of weeks in Sweden.
Yeah, but it was half a year after the book fair.
Yeah, and we were going to bed. It was late in the evening, and we just suddenly saw, flashlights moving in our garden, and we were saying, what is this? Who is in our garden now? And maybe it's a neighbor looking for something. And then we heard this hard knock on the door, and I pushed Alexandra. I said, I'm not opening. You have to open.
So I had to open it. And it was two journalists, one with a torch and one with a camera, and they just said, just admit we know it's you. So we did.
Yeah.
You did, yeah. Were you scared that, them revealing who you really were would somehow mess up the magic that you had created with the Lars Kepler name?
We thought it was over, actually.
Yeah.
Wow,
so we were not happy at all.
No, I was just shaking, and I thought, is it a crime to have a pen name?
So
it felt like, it was, media were totally crazy about it.
But we returned to Stockholm. We had this huge press conference, and when all the fuss was over, we started to write, and
it was still there. The magic was still there. So,
well, I'm so happy that the reveal did not ruin the magic. I know your readers around the world are so happy about that. It's an incredible story, and I'm just so excited for readers in the US to finally be able to get their hands on this amazing book. And I know that we have some audience questions here. I have one more question for you before we go to audience questions, though. I would love to know, I know you both are huge readers in your free time, and I'm curious if you can just share with us what kinds of books you enjoy reading, maybe some writers whose work you tend to love.
Oh,
we read a lot.
Yeah, we are huge readers, and I think
for pleasure, of course, for research, but we read a lot just for fun.
Yeah, and nowadays we have actually started a
book club
or book discussion club, book circle with me and Alexandra. So, and it's a way to have more reading in our daily life, and it's great. And we just read, everything that
All
we feel
genres,
like.
but of course a lot of crime fiction.
Yeah.
So if we are,
Gillian Flynn is
Gillian
fantastic.
Flynn, I like her. very
Yeah,
much.
absolutely.
I like her wild stories.
Yeah.
And Finn, of course.
Yeah, AJ Finn, the Woman at the Window, we really enjoy. There are so many good. And I always feel that we shouldn't just pick out a few because it's like music or food.
Yeah.
It's what you feel like in the moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree.
I love Patricia Highsmith, and there are so many we
Yeah.
just adore.
I love that you two have your own book club. I think that is just the sweetest thing. So cute. I love it.
It's the best time of the day, actually. It's such a luxury to read.
It is. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're going to turn to audience questions here because I see we have a bunch of really great ones. Okay, let's start with one. Oh, and if you don't know the answer to this question, no stress, but someone would like to know is it true that the writer's market in Sweden is predominantly thrillers, saying that we don't really see a lot of sci-fi and fantasy from there, at least, not what makes it to the States. Do you know if it's mostly thrillers?
Well, I think it's a difference between what's being translated
Yeah.
and what is being read here in Sweden. But I think actually that crime fiction, it has a very heavy tradition here, and it's I think it's the
From
most
the 70s.
popular genre.
Yeah, because you all really, the crime fiction tradition in Sweden was so hugely influential, around the world.
Yeah, it's big.
Yeah,
It's really heritage.
But
absolutely.
Reads a lot, actually. So it's
Swedes read a lot, yes,
Yeah.
and they read a lot of crime.
A lot of crime.
Not so much sci-fi.
No.
And I don't think so many writers here write sci-fi.
Interesting. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, a question here asks, how was your research for this book different from your other books? Was there anything in your research for this book that you found particularly interesting? And this might be hard to discuss without spoilers. Maybe we could say, is there any particular research you've done in general for any of your books that particularly stands out to you?
of course, when we almost feel like experts nowadays about police tactics and weapons and forensics, but each book have also new
research,
yeah. And this was, since it's a psychological labyrinth, it's a lot about talking to psychiatrists and psychologists and reading about this.
It's hard to say without spoiling.
I know, it's really hard.
But I remember one place we went to. It was an isolation ward in Sweden's most maximum security prison, and standing in that isolation ward was something I hadn't imagined before, because it was so. The walls just came, closer and closer, and
you're a bit claustrophobic.
Yeah, and it was also the feeling of despair in that place. It was kind of the most horrifying place I've ever been to. And you can Google things, but when you actually are in a room like that, you could never imagine it. It was so, you could feel it. You could feel the desperation in the room.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Okay, our next question here. Oh, this is a good one. Is there anything you've had to put Juna through where you were like, no, how horrible, but you still had to do it because it worked for the story?
Yeah.
Oh, we feel sorry for him all the time.
Every book. I just wish he could have a massage,
Right?
and
He
have
needs
a
one. He deserves it.
We try to give him some love, but he's always interrupted and have to go on with his kids. But what he goes through in Lazarus,
that is terrible.
Yeah.
Sorry for him.
And also with the Mirror Man, there are some complications in his family that I wish he didn't have to experience.
Absolutely. He definitely deserves a spa day at the very least, maybe a couple. Let's see. You said each of your books are contained universes. Do you have a special system to make sure the whole world is in order?
Oh,
Well, good question. Well, actually not.
no, we still trust that we can keep it in order.
We have two brains, so
Yeah,
That's right.
2 brains. Maybe that is the answer.
I love it. Okay, let's see. Lisa would like to know, how many hours a day do you spend writing?
Wow, we try to not write too much. So, like between 8 to 10 hours. So it's long days because we can't stop. We have to tell ourselves to. It's enough. Especially
you
have a big problem of stopping.
Sometimes Alexandra sits and shaves, in front of the computer.
Oh, that's not a good idea, actually, because I try to save some time and I start shaving, and then, of course, I have an idea, and I stop shaving and continue to write, and I start to shave, and then so half in the evening I just half shaved.
That's great, yeah.
No, but we love to write, so we are very privileged to be able to write.
Many hours every day, even holidays and so far. Because when we stop writing, we continue to talk about the plot. So when we cook,
it's in our minds.
Yeah, you're living with it, kind of. Yeah.
We love it.
I'm curious, do your kids read your books? This is just my own curiosity. Do they read your books, and what do they think of them?
Well, we have 3 daughters, and one of them read our books.
Yeah. Okay.
She's a very good reader, actually, and she has become our first reader. So every time we finish a book, we give the manuscript to her, and she's like, change that. And,
but she's grown up now. But I know in the beginning when they wanted to read our books, we said we wanted them to be 15 years at least. Because in Sweden, when you're 15, you can see any movie at the theater. So we thought that's okay. But it was actually not the violence we thought about. It was the sex scenes because, as parents,
I didn't feel.
Want to say it's not us. It's
and
we're just the characters.
Kind of strange things in the book here.
It's so funny, but 15 is a good age. Good age. Okay, let's see. Oh, how is it being a married writing team? Do any fights ever break out over the story or the plot that you're working on?
Well, it used to. It was worse before, but now we have learned that when we feel different, it's not, the biggest thing in the world. It's probably it is just is that we are both right.
Yeah.
So we need to go back and study the plot.
And we know we can solve it always. And actually that spills over to our relationship because we're so used to solve when we disagree on the plot or characters with the discussions. So we use that experience in our relationship. So
amazing.
It's good for marriage.
Yeah, we feel safe that we can solve things together.
Yeah.
Of course, we have fights as everybody else, but we trust in our dialogue.
Yeah.
You two are amazing. I love that so much. Let's see. It looks like this is our last question coming up. So if anyone else has any questions, feel free to drop them in that little Ask a Question tab on the bottom of your screen. And this person would like to know, are you both still actively writing on your own separate projects? And if so, what have you been working on?
Well, no. No, there has been no time for that. And also not really a will because it's such an enjoyable thing writing together. And being in the universe of Jonah Linna and Saga Bauer, it's just the most wonderful thing we have been through as writers.
Yeah, but from start we said if one of us want to write something on their own, it's of course okay because you can't force creativity. If you have to write something, you have to. But
and that
still is Jonah.
Yeah. So we have always felt that if that day would come, that one of us would like to write something, of course we should do that. But so far we just, it's just so enjoyable.
I love it. You two are so inspiring. And I just want to thank you so much for letting me chat with you. This has been wonderful. And I'm going to turn it back over to Nick here. But thank you both so much for your time.
And thank you, everyone who has asked the questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Amazing questions.
Yes.
And, oh my goodness, I did not know anything about this Lars Kepler most wanted list. They were trying to find out. That is so interesting. Oh man, what kind of time frame was that? Was that like the months, weeks that people who's Lars Kepler?
Yeah.
So
it was a spring and a summer.
So April to August.
Yeah,
and it was every day. It
was all around the newspaper, this hunt of Lars Kepler.
I mean, obviously, while that was going through, you were probably dreading life, but now looking back on it, you're probably like, oh, those are crazy times.
It was a crazy time. I remember that in Sweden we have, a monarchy, and one of the princesses, she was, getting engaged. The day we were, our identity was revealed, and nobody wrote about her engagement. I felt so sorry for the princess.
Because it's always the top news when they do something, but not this time.
Oh my goodness.
Who is this Lars Kepler doing this?
You should have a placard that says that. We made more news than
That's
royalty
right. Amazing.
I wish we had something as fun like that here in the States. I think the closest thing we had was probably when people were chasing after Britney Spears years ago.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, I'm off topic. I just found this so interesting. Thank you, everyone who joined us for this virtual event. I know we all miss in-store things, but to be able to reach out to these wonderful authors across the globe, this is we can't ask for more. So thank you so much. And if you haven't already, you can purchase any one of their books down below on our website, anything in the Killer Instinct series or more. Please buy Mirror Man. Again, they're all self-contained universes, so you can read them out of order if you want. There we go. And lastly, where can people find you on social media so they can follow you?
We have a Facebook account, Lars Kepler, and Instagram.
And a web page.
Yeah.
LarsKepler.com.
So we are there. And just contact us. We love to talk to our readers.
Yep.
It's the best thing. Readers
I love it when authors are so open to let's talk.
Oh, it's the best thing.
Yeah.
We share the same universe.
And if anyone had missed this event or only caught a little bit of it, you can rewatch it later on our archived YouTube channel. Otherwise, it has been a pleasure, and we hope to see everyone for our next virtual event. All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.